What up, everybody? Happy Hump Day. Welcome to another edition of Giants Collective. We have a huge game Sunday. We're going for another. Oh, wait a minute. That's last decade. I'm sorry about that. I'm confused. What's going on, everybody? So, as you guys probably see by the title, we're going to take a lot of questions tonight. There's really not a lot to talk about in Giants land, so we'd like to take some of your questions. We don't usually get a huge opportunity to do that. So, ask your questions in the chat. We'll pull a couple up and give you our thoughts on them. But before we get into that, there really is a big game. There's a couple of big games, obviously, this weekend. But as a Giants fan, this could not have been any worse, unless maybe the Cowboys win this game with the Eagles. Makes me throw up in my mouth a little bit. I'm not going to lie. It's disgusting. However, it's going to happen. Either the Commanders or the Eagles are going to the Super Bowl. Go Bills. And I'm just gonna go around the table real quick and ask your opinion. Adriana, give me your opinion. What do you think is going to happen Sunday? Who do you think is going to the Super Bowl between the Commanders and Eagles?
I have to pick the Commanders because I refuse to pick the Eagles. I do actually think the Commanders are going to keep it close. And I hope that they can sneak out a win. I think it would be the most incredible story that we've seen in a long time. And I'm rooting for the story. The rookie quarterback, the whole new ownership, they revamped everything this offseason. Yeah. And look what happened. The Giants will never be that, but good for you, Commanders. You figured it out. And I have to root for anyone to beat the Eagles. And I just think that the way that they played against the Lions, I had a Lions-Bills Super Bowl. Like, I really was all in on the Lions. And the way that the Commanders really dominated that game from beginning to end gives me a lot of hope that they're going to be able to take down the Eagles. I don't think it'll be a blowout, but I have faith that they can do it.
Anthony, what do you think?
I'm rooting for the Commanders because I can never root for Philly. I really don't want to see Philly win this, and I really hate to say this as a Giants fan on a Giants show, I don't think there's any slowing down Saquon Barkley right now. I think the Eagles are going to win this game, and it's going to make me sick to my stomach. So go AFC, whether it's the Chiefs or the Bills, I don't care. The AFC needs to win this one.
I agree with that wholeheartedly. Chris, what do you think happens Sunday?
First off, hey Trisha again. Thank you for tuning in. I see 8,000 hey Chris's and Adriana's joined the party as well now. As far as this game goes this week, it's a nightmare. I mean, like you said, the only worst possible scenario would have been the Cowboys. So I'm just hoping for a tie at the end of the day, or both teams to forfeit, and they just crown the AFC winner, the Super Bowl champion. But yeah, I'm with you guys. Obviously, I'm rooting for Washington just because I view them as the lesser of two evils. Because over the course of my lifetime, the Eagles have just given me so much despair. If I grew up in the 80s, I may feel differently. Watching the football in the 80s, I may feel differently because Washington was dominant then, but my entire life, the Eagles have dominated the Giants really start to finish since I've been watching football. So they've always been my most hated team. I can't stand their head coach. But if you're asking me who I think is going to win, I hope I'm wrong. What I feared for the Lions and why I kind of hinted at last week that I could see actually the Rams making the Super Bowl just because I thought the Lions were vulnerable. I didn't think that because they were so banged up on that defense. And I didn't think Washington was going to beat them, but I thought the winner of the Eagles Rams game had a very good chance to beat the Lions. So Washington surprised me with the rookie quarterback, Jaden Daniels. But I feel like they picked on a very vulnerable defense with all those injuries. I think the Eagles is going to be a much tougher test for their offense. I don't see them going out there and scoring 40 points and winning that football game. So I'm leaning Eagles. I think it'll be close. I think it'll be competitive because if I recall, I think when they played each other, Washington actually beat them pretty handily the last time they played, right?
No, they won at the last minute.
But last minute rather, but they won. I think it'll be a competitive game. I think it'll be within 3 to 7 points, but unfortunately, I'm going to pick the Eagles.
Can you give me the Sirianni really quick before the
what he's the Giants fans during that game?
Yeah,
I hate him so much. He's my most hated person.
I hate him.
I can tell you this, Chris. I did grow up in the 80s. I did watch football in the 80s. And anybody that knows me knows exactly how I feel about Philadelphia. I don't need to spell it out for you. I can't stand them sons of bitches. I hate Philadelphia. This started with Buddy Ryan back in the day, which I bet 70% of Eagle fans don't even know who the hell Buddy Ryan is because they recently just jumped on the bandwagon. Oh, look at the Eagles. Yay, potato pack over there. The way I look at it is this. It's going to be a good game. I don't see either team blowing them out. There's two things
both
that
games are going to be fantastic, by the way.
Yeah.
Both games.
I think so too. I hope so. That's what you want on a championship Sunday. So there's two things I look at in this game. Number one, the Eagles offensively haven't been really good. They have ridden Saquon Barkley, and why wouldn't you? He's had a fantastic year. I knew the Rams had no chance of slowing him down. He rushed over 450 yards against them in 2 games. The Eagles had over 600 rushing yards against them in 2 games. The Rams couldn't stop them to save their life. But outside of him, the Eagle offense has been kind of and their defense has really carried them without question. Okay. But the Commanders, the Eagles have gone against a couple of guys, and Matt Stafford and Jordan Love, that are not dynamic quarterbacks. They're good. They're not Jaden Daniels. They haven't really had to face an offense like Washington, who, in my opinion, right now is the hottest team in the NFL. And as Giants fans, I think we know when you get hot at the right time, you can be very, very dangerous. Jaden Daniels is a huge difference maker. Terry McLaurin's had a great year. They can run the ball. They can do almost anything on offense. And again, on 3rd down and 5, 3rd down and 8, you got to worry about Jaden Daniels' legs. You don't have to worry about Matt Stafford. You don't have to worry about him doing any of that stuff. On the flip side, Detroit's not Philadelphia's defense either. The last time they played, Washington turned the ball over 5 times in the game. Now, they did come up with 5 touchdowns, but Jalen Hurts didn't play. And as much as I hate Jalen Hurts, we all know that makes a difference when your starting quarterback goes down. So I really don't know what's going to happen. It sucks because my gut tells me, and my gut's going to make me want to vomit, but I feel like Philadelphia is going to win. But I feel like Washington has a really good chance, and I'm just hopeful that Jaden Daniels, it does make the difference at the end, and they do get to the Super Bowl. I've never hated Washington the way I do the other 2 teams. I would be, well, I wouldn't say I'd be happy for them, but I could deal with watching them play the Super Bowl. I'm fine with a rematch of Super Bowl 26. And I don't know if any of you guys are even old enough to remember Super Bowl 26.
I remember.
It was Washington and
won by like 30 points.
Yeah, I don't think it would be like that if they played again this time. So
the other thing I'll add to that, I think the Eagles actually benefited last week from the weather. I think the rain, because we knew the Rams are going to try to. They're more of a passing team than the Philadelphia Eagles. I think the weather played a big factor in that game. If it was normal conditions, I think there's a good chance the Eagles wouldn't be playing this Sunday. I think the Rams stood a really good chance to win that game. I think the weather played a mega factor in that game. So the Eagles are certainly beatable. Like, let's not act like they're this incredible team. They're beatable, and Washington's hot. So I agree that it could go either way, but I'm going to err on the side of caution so I don't get too depressed after the game. I'm leaning the Eagles will win.
I think we can all agree, like Anthony said, let's go AFC.
Let's go.
I don't care who it is. I don't care. You can talk about the Chiefs and all which I'll admit the officiating is disgraceful in favor of the Chiefs. They also do it with the Eagles too. It's very disgraceful. They don't even hide it anymore. It's pretty bad. Our friend Bob, thank you for the question. He says lots of reports coming out of Titans camp about them taking BPA and not quarterback. Anthony, I'll start with you. What are your thoughts on that? Which I know you tweeted this out earlier, so go ahead.
Yeah, my initial thought on it is it's only January, and a lot can change between now and April. We always get reports like this and comments like this from different general managers and VPs and all this stuff. So I wouldn't put too much stock into it right now, considering there's so much time between now and April. But I think that it's interesting that they came out and used the word generational. That's a buzzword that a lot of fans and analysts like to use. Yeah. To my knowledge and the way that I interpret it, people in the league don't usually like to use that word because it sets too lofty of expectations. So the fact that somebody in the Titans front office used that word, generational, tells me that they probably do have a specific player in mind with that first overall pick. So it actually could be true that they will pass on the quarterback. I think by all accounts, if you look at any of the analysts, Kuiper, Miller, like any of them, none of them have any of these quarterbacks as being generational. The only really 1 or 2 players that they might give that label to would be Travis Hunter, Abdul Carter. And if that's the case, if one of those 2 guys go number 1 overall, then the New York Giants will definitely have the opportunity to draft their quarterback, whether that's Cam Ward or Shedeur Sanders, or could end up being both of them if the Browns end up passing on a quarterback as well. So I think there's just so much uncertainty now in January, but I'm hoping that it's true. I'm hoping that the Titans go with the BPA because I think the Giants really need to walk out of the first round of this draft with a quarterback, and that would be their best path towards achieving that goal.
Chris, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, those are the first. I even reposted it on Twitter. Those are the first two names that popped in my head when I saw the term generational. As good as much, and Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders are good prospects, but nobody would say that they're generational, right, at that position. So the only two names that popped in my head were those two. Maybe you could argue Genty, the running back, but they're not taking a running back at first overall. So those were the two names that popped in my head as well. Now, it could be smoke, and not to try to confuse the team because they're picking first. Who do they have to confuse? But it could be them sending out feelers that they're open to potentially trading down. I think that could be part of it. And then the devil's advocate of me would say, well, if they do take Cam Ward or if they do take Shedeur Sanders, their GM is going to try to sell the fan base that they feel they're generational. They're spending the first overall pick on them. So I don't want to read too much into it. But if you're taking them at their word and if they really mean what they say, yeah, that would lend itself more towards not going quarterback with that first overall pick. I just don't know how much to read into it at this point because there's so much games that are played going into the NFL draft. I think it's more likely it's them sending out a feeler to at least engage in potential teams wanting to trade up, being like saying we're open for business if the right deal's out there for us, which would mean that the Giants, if they wanted a quarterback, would have the ability to trade up and get one in that scenario. I think that's more likely than them taking a guy like Travis Hunter at first overall because they so desperately need a quarterback. They have the first overall pick, but things could change in March. If they sign Sam Darnold, obviously I feel much differently and I would take them much more at their word. But right now I'm leaning, it's more likely maybe they're open to trading down than taking a non-quarterback with that pick if they stay at one.
Adriana, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think, in my opinion, free agency is going to give us more of an idea of what they're doing than, a comment like that, because it is the season for chaos when all of these reports start coming out. I saw, I got a text from my brother saying, oh, someone works in sports media and so came in and said the Giants are definitely getting Sanders. And it's just like, it's all chaos. And I think you can take some of it with a grain of salt, and then we really just have to wait to see what happens. But I do think that now is the time when all of that stuff is going to start to get out, and maybe they're just trying to get ahead of it.
Yeah, I agree with you guys. It's in January. It's tough. I mean, we don't know what free agency hit. We all know the Underwear Olympics make a massive difference. Players' stock can fall. Right. It can rise and fall like the stock market. It really is. It's insane how much emphasis they put on the athleticism of these players. So I agree, man. If you have a really good combine or you have a really bad combine, it can definitely hurt you. I really don't know what Tennessee is going to do, but like Anthony mentioned, and you mentioned it too, Chris, I don't think I like Cameron Ward. I mean, definitely like him. I would not use the term generational with him though. You look at a guy like Travis, so that's generational. I don't care. I mean, I don't remember seeing a guy so great on each side of the ball like that and playing every snap, like pretty much.
Who's the last guy that was close to him I guess Woodson at the collegiate level? Who won the Heisman Trophy with Michigan? He played both sides, right?
I think he was more of a special team.
He wasn't on the level that the Hunter is.
That's what I'm saying. I've never seen anything like Travis Hunter.
Yeah.
Then again, Abdul Carter. I mean, you just have to watch him, and he's awesome. So I would love them to do that. I would love it because, like Anthony said, we need our quarterback, man. And I well, you guys know I won't buy Cameron Ward, so hopefully we'll see what happens. Oh, there's 3 months before this happens, so we'll have a lot more rumors. We'll have a lot more things to discuss. He's going here, he's going here. We all know this, and sometimes it's true and sometimes it's not. And unfortunately for us, 6 years ago it was true when we took Daniel Jones 6 overall. I thought I was smoke. H50, thank you, bro. Draft Milroe and Scadaboo. Move Neal to guard like the Eagles did back then. I don't know why they still haven't done that. Tracy, Milroe, and Scadaboo. The Giants are the #1 rushing offense next year. Chris, what do you think about that?
I mean, the one thing I like that he said is Neal to guard. I think that's – now I don't want to say like I want him to be like the sole answer at guard, but I want to at least try him out. I want him to bring in as much competition as possible because I'm certainly not convinced that Evan Neal is going to be a good starting guard just because I saw Mekhi Becton do it. Mekhi Becton was a good tackle. Evan Neal sucks at tackle. So, I mean, there's certainly instances where guys have shifted from Eric Flowers is a perfect example. Horrible tackle became a pretty good guard. So I think it's certainly something the Giants should explore in training camp for sure. but I also want them to bring in, more competition and may the best man win. That's the way I look at it. Evan Neal, at this point, you're not getting the red carpet rolled out for you. You couldn't even break the starting lineup for the Giants this year, coming off the year they did last year, one of the worst offensive lines in the history of the NFL. Mm-hmm. So I want him to get an opportunity to play guard and see if we could get something out of that atrocious pick that we made. So I'm certainly in favor of at least exploring that in training camp. Milroe and Scadaboo, I like Scadaboo. I haven't looked at where he's being mocked. He's just he's kind of like who was the running back I really liked last year on Michigan, who ended up going to the chart? No, where did he go?
Blake Corum.
He's like him. He's just a guy I really like watching play. I felt the same way about Corum last year. Just a really tough running back. Doesn't have incredible athletic attributes, but Scadaboo's just a guy you love watching play. He's tough. His calves are the size of my head. And I do think he's actually somewhat underrated as an athlete. He's a good pass catcher as well. I don't know where he's being mocked, but if he was going in the 3rd or 4th round, sure. Why not? I'd be open to something like that. I'm personally not a fan of Milroe. Now, Milroe's a guy that I could see moving up because of the combine. As you said, the underwear Olympics. You see, he's a good athlete. He could run a really good 40 time. Maybe he throws the ball far, and maybe there's one team that thinks they could unlock his potential. I'm not a fan of Milroe. I don't want Milroe. I wouldn't want Milroe in the 2nd round. That's just my outlook on him. I watched him play several times this year at Alabama. His last game, he had like 4 turnovers in the 1st quarter. Where he's probably going to go in the draft, I don't have much interest in the Giants drafting him. That's my outlook. If you get him round 3 or 4, okay, but I don't have much interest in him in the 1st or 2nd round.
There's a term we use for players like, or at least I do, for someone like Scadaboo. He's just a football player.
Oh, he's a football player.
That's a football player. Adriana, what are your thoughts on Milroe, Scadaboo, and moving Neal to guard?
I think, like Chris, it depends on where we can get Scadaboo. I watched him play a little bit this year and was impressed with him, and I feel similarly about Milroe. I've seen him play really well, and I've seen him play really awfully. The thing with the quarterback in the 2nd round, whether it's him or Dart or, even Will Howard at this point, I do kind of think you're going to get that with any one of those 2nd, 3rd, 4th round quarterbacks. So it is what it is. I guess it depends on how much faith you have in Dable to help that. What I will say is that after watching Jaden Daniels and the fact that he is virtually untackleable, if Milroe is even 50% like that, I would be thrilled to have him out there, just to know that, he's not going to get sacked every other play because he holds onto the ball too long and can't move. So would be happy to have that and have that contribute to the rushing offense. I have seen this is a pretty deep running back class. I'm not dying to draft a running back when we have about 17 other needs before that. But if if he's the best player available in round 4, then I'm all for it.
Yeah, I'm exactly what you just said. That's like the least thing in terms of need. No, but like Anthony always says, we shouldn't be drafting for need. We're a team that should be drafting for the best available player. So going back to your point, if he is the best player on their board, I'm completely for it. I think he's a really good football player. I think he could help contribute to the team. But yeah, in terms of need, that's like last on my list. That or tight end. Like we got to worry about so many more important things. So I would it be my preference? No. I'd rather you go O-line, D-line, with those 2nd, 3rd round picks. But if they take him, he's an exciting player.
Mm-hmm.
Anthony, what do you think about that?
Well, initially, I'm just glad that I have the reputation as the draft BPA person on this show. Like that.
Definitely.
No, I'm in agreement with you. I also agree with that philosophy.
Yeah. No, I
just
like
this, though, Anthony. I actually asked this to somebody on Twitter when we were going back and forth earlier this week. If you go strictly by your philosophy, and I don't think you're strictly BPA. I think you have been when it comes to the quarterback position because you're starting to tout potentially take Cam Ward. You even just admitted he's not a generational prospect. You would agree, in theory, with the Saquon Barkley pick. He was the BPA in the 2018 draft, was he not? I mean, in hindsight, you would say Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, but going into that draft, he was the BPA.
So it's BPA outside of the quarterback position is how I always say it.
Okay,
That's how it always is. That's why last year I advocated for taking McCarthy at 6.
Right.
Neighbors was the best player available, and it was a good selection. I would have taken a quarterback anyway, because outside of quarterback, if you have that need, that's the need you overdraft for. Everything else, best player available. So
I'm with you on that.
That's my take.
That's something we completely agree on. I'm with you on that.
So what about the Milroe Scadaboo?
Yeah, for the comment. Yeah. Moving Neal to guard, like Chris said, it's just step one. He has to be a good guard. Otherwise, it's not a solution. I I really think it was a major missed opportunity for the New York Giants in a completely lost season amidst a 10-game losing streak. Why did they not give Neal a chance to run at guard then? And I know that there's been, rumors maybe he was resistant to it. If he's resistant to it, then just don't put him on the field in the first place. Don't even give him the chance to play right tackle. It's not his rules. He's got to play by the rules of the Giants coaching staff. That's how I look at it. So I think that the Giants didn't want to put him at guard for one reason or another. He should have been getting reps at guard, so that way we can go into the offseason with some sort of an idea as to whether or not he can play it next season. We still have no idea. I have no clue. So I would love to see him have the Mekhi Becton career turnaround. Even if you want to go to Eric Flowers, did the same thing, moved to guard when he left the Giants and became a serviceable starter across two teams, Washington and Miami. I would love to see that happen for Evan Neal. I really hope that they're the ones that actually attempt that, though, because for those other guys, Flowers and Becton, they left New York and then had that career turnaround with another smarter team.
Like
so
every
I hope
other
the
player
Giants
beats New York, by the way.
Exactly. So I hope that the Giants are smart enough to actually put Neal at guard as early as they can, OTAs, whatever, training camp. Get it started early, but again, you still have to continue adding talent to that position. For Scatterbo, I think he's intriguing. It's not a priority. I don't think running back is something that you really prioritize in the draft, although taking flyers on late round running backs is good practice because the hit rate is higher statistically on late round running backs. So if he's high up on your board in that same range, there's a couple other prospects, maybe you take him because there is more stability to drafting running backs in the later rounds. Now, Milroe is an intriguing prospect for me because I think that he has got such a wide array of projection, right? He could be, the ceiling is limitless for a quarterback that potentially runs 4.3, 4.4. There was a scout that spoke to ESPN's Matt Miller and said exactly that. I can teach him mechanics. I can teach him how to fix his accuracy. I can teach him how to read defenses. I can't teach a quarterback 4.3 speed. And that is the selling point for Jalen Milroe. He runs better than any other quarterback. And I actually think with Milroe, when you watch the games, it's almost like he knows where to go with the football. Like he throws to the right spots and reads defenses, I think, better than people give him credit for. He's just got no sound mechanics in his passing motion, and he's super inaccurate because of that. And the ball just sprays out of his hand all over the place. I think that is pretty correctable. And I think with proper coaching, he could be a pretty good quarterback as well as a rusher. So I like Milroe more than most people. I think the potential is absolutely there for him. And I think that if you want to make the connection between Josh Allen having similar strengths and weaknesses coming out of college versus the similar strengths and weaknesses that Milroe had, this was one that I saw ESPN's Matt Miller made as well. Brian Dable might fall in love with him. I think that if there's any coach that might see those tools and traits, those strengths and weaknesses, and think I can make something of this, it would actually be Brian Dable. And also because the tools and traits are similar to Jalen Hurts. So
do you really think he has the same? And obviously, we all know Josh Allen was a project coming out of Wyoming. Yes. Do you really think he has those same ceiling traits that Josh Allen had? Like when I watched Josh Allen, Anthony, in the combat, he is one of the few prospects I've ever watched in the underwear Olympics where my jaw dropped. Like in terms of just what
I'm not comparing the talent.
Yeah, I know. I don't see his potential ceiling on that level. I actually
he's faster and a better runner than Josh Allen. Yeah. Josh Allen's a great runner. So he's more dynamic even as a runner than Allen is.
I view him more of like an Anthony Richardson type prospect than Josh.
Yeah, Allen. But coming out of college, who were people comparing Anthony Richardson to was Josh Allen.
Okay, fair enough.
So
fair enough.
It's the same comparison to me. The strengths and the weaknesses. That's all I'm saying. Inaccuracy was a major weakness for Josh Allen coming out. He fixed it in year 3. People forget it took 2 years, and then the third year, he finally became an accurate quarterback. Inaccuracy is Milroe's biggest problem. One of Josh Allen's biggest strengths at Wyoming, he could run better than almost every other quarterback. That's the same thing for Jalen Milroe. So if you're just going by strengths and weaknesses and what Brian Dable might look for in a quarterback, I think he will like Milroe more than most people. And that's why I think if the Giants don't get that quarterback in round 1, Milroe might be an intriguing option for them. But again, it also ties into, I made the big argument for Justin Fields, similar strengths, weaknesses. I think that's why they're going to go after him in free agency.
So, yeah, all great points. The Giants did take a tackle and move him to guard. He became a pretty damn good guard. Justin Pugh came out of Syracuse. He was a right tackle. Wasn't great over there. Wasn't Eric Flowers level. Wasn't Evan Neal level. I don't think anybody's ever seen anything like that. But they moved him to guard. He ended up being a pretty damn good guard for the Giants for many years. You can't give up on a 7th overall pick and just sit him on a damn bench. You have to try to find some place for him on the line. And if he fails at guard, what did you actually lose? Like if you play him in practice, you play him in the preseason training camp and in the preseason games, and he sucks, what did you lose? Nothing. So you should give him the opportunity, because if he can succeed, because he is better inside than outside, and he has more help, obviously, inside there than being put on an island against some of the best pass rushers in the league. Maybe it builds his confidence. Maybe he becomes something. But like I said, if he doesn't, what's the hell's the difference? You're not going to keep him around anyway. So you might as well try to get some value out of that pick, because Lord knows that is one of Shane's biggest gaffes, is swinging and missing on back then. He swung big and missed on that one.
Yeah.
As far as Milroe goes, that's a tough one. I like Chris. I'm not a huge fan, but Anthony also makes a lot of really good points about what Milroe's capabilities are. And I'm in total agreement. He's such a wild card. It's really tough to see, because he really could be really shitty and he could be really good. He would need proper coaching. Now, obviously, Dable is tied to Josh Allen. A lot of people give Dable credit for fixing Josh Allen's mechanics and becoming the guy that he is today. But then there's a lot of Giants fans that say that Brian Dable can't do any of this stuff. They don't want to give him any credit for Josh Allen. And you would hope that if they did take Milroe and the Giants won 3 games or 4 games again, they wouldn't fire him. And then what happens with Jalen Milroe? So it'd be kind of risky. As far as Scatterbo goes, listen, I like those type of running backs. And to all your points, if I want to say he was projected to go in the 4th round, I'm not positive. These projections change every day depending on the mock draft you look at. But again, if he's the best player available in round 4, there's nothing wrong with having running back.
We also have a ton of picks, right? We have like 10 picks.
9 picks or something.
9 picks.
Plus, Scatterbo is a freaking bruiser. Like, that is a perfect guy on 3rd down and 1, 3rd and goal from the 2. That's the guy you want to get the ball to, because he's a thumper. Tyrone Tracy is definitely a pleasant surprise. He's not a thumper like Scatterbo. Like, Scatterbo is going to run your ass over. So maybe you get a little thunder and lightning like back in the day. Who knows? But I'd be okay with Scatterbo later in the draft. But to all your points, that's really the least of our worries, is the running back position.
It's kind of a pick there, Doug, where I'd be like, excited that he was a Giant. I'd be happy, but it's not something I'm going to be hoping for on draft day. I'm going to want trenches. I'm going to want defensive line, offensive line,
of course,
secondary, cornerback help. That's what I'm going to want with those picks.
To Anthony, really quick, because I say this all the time. But we talk about the Giants, the 2nd round, Milroe, Dart, whatever they missed on the quarterback in the 1st round. I say this all the time. The Giants do not take a quarterback with that first pick. They're going back up in the 1st round. Do you agree? Like, to go, you'd have to trade up. I would trade up from 34 to. I don't know how much you have to give up to go from 34 to 30. 34 to 29, but don't you want that 5th-year option on the quarterback just in case?
Absolutely. I think the price tag for the Panthers, because they did it last year to draft Xavier Legette, I think they gave up a 5th-round pick to move up from 33 to 32. So for a quarterback, you have to project it's probably a little bit more expensive. It's probably a 4th-round pick for the Giants to move up 3 spots. I think for a 4th-round pick, just to get an extra year on that contract, absolutely, especially if he does hit. I know he's a wild card, and, you really don't know what he's going to be, but if he does become even a serviceable starter, you're going to want to have that 5th-year option for negotiation purposes down the line. So that's not something that I trust Joe Shane to do, because I think he's a very short-sighted general manager, but somebody who has a forward-thinking mindset, I think, would absolutely want to trade up into the 1st round to get that 5th-year option.
I just want to make sure that I wasn't the only one in that boat. I'm pretty sure we would all agree. And that makes all sense. It's not like you're picking 40th and you're trying to get back up into the 1st round. You're literally 2 spots from the 1st round at that point.
Yeah. If they're taking a quarter, which I don't think they're going to do, I'm going to continue to say I think we're taking a quarterback at 3. But if they were to do that, I think it makes all the sense in the world.
Even if both the quarters are off the board, do you think they're?
I don't think they're going to be. I don't think they're going to be.
Okay. Well,
but if they are, of course, then I don't think they'll go quarterback.
Okay. Yeah. Door Gunner, thank you, brother. Commander fans says, let's meet listen, you got 3. If we got 4 Giants fans here rooting for your commies, so go out there and freaking beat them filthy, stinking pigeons, please.
We're begging you.
I'm pretty sure the NFC East, I'm pretty sure Cowboys fans, Giants fans alike, with the Commanders fans are pulling for you guys. I'm pretty sure we can all agree we don't like Philadelphia. Nobody likes Philadelphia.
We're all aboard with you, Dorgunner, this week. Now, we're not staying aboard come Super Bowl Sunday, but for a week, we'll get along.
That's right. Don't let us down. Dr. Garrett, our buddy Dr. Garrett, coming out guns blazing. How many games into 2025 do Shane and Dave's make it? I say they're gone by week 10. How's that for optimism? He says, give me some trouble. Well, frankly, I'm going to tell you right now, Dr. Garrett, it's been a total disaster. You take a look at Joe Shane. He's done a lot of terrible moves. Saquon, awful. What a terrible disaster that's turned out to be. We hate it. We hate the Eagles, even though they're Philadelphia. Screw them anyway. Dave's and Shane, are they making it through the year? Chris, they making it through the year?
Yeah.
How far are they going?
Yeah, they're making it through.
If we're 2-7,
they're making it through the year. Okay, they're making it through the year. That's not the only time in that I could recall that John Mara's ever fired somebody in season was McAdoo, and that was only because of the Eli situation. Otherwise, obviously, he would have finished the year, and he was trying to make an example of him because he saw the vengeance from the fan base. If he didn't fire him in year last year, the fan base was flying planes over the stadium. I don't see it. I think he's clearly shown that he's not going to just fold to the pressure from the fan base and the media. He's going to do what he thinks is right, and whether or not they make it to the next year, well, we could discuss that. That's going to depend on variables. But I don't see them getting fired mid-season next year. We're not the New York Jets. We don't fire GMs after 5 weeks. We're not doing that. They could get fired at the end of the year. I think obviously David would be more likely, because if we do what I think we're going to do and what I think most people think we're going to do and take a quarterback with that pick, more than likely Shane will get another year. But there's catastrophic situations where if we're picking first, you could completely blow it up. But I'm leaning that Shane's going to get at least 2 more years. And I don't think there'll be a firing in season next year.
I'm going to say this real quick. This is a hot take. If the Giants do draft the quarterback this year and we're picking first next year, we're picking another. Then everybody's getting fired, and they're picking
at that point you blow it up.
That's I think if that happens.
Yeah.
When you look at our schedule, there's a possibility that
possibility.
But the one thing I'll say is this: say we take Justin Fields, and he plays 11 games, or they play him the whole year, and we're still really bad, and the rookie don't really have an opportunity to play, would you still fire them? Like,
I know most fans would say yes. Would I know? I would give shit. The way I look at it is this: if I'm Mara, I already took the bullets. Everyone in the fan base wanted me to fire Joe Shane and Brian Daboll. I already took the bullets. I took the vengeance. I took the venom from the entire tri-state area. Everybody mocked me. I made the decision. I thought it was the best decision, obviously, because I kept them to push forward with Joe Shane and Brian Daboll, to give them an opportunity to draft a quarterback. That's more than likely what they're going to do. If I did that, I'm not going to do the same thing I did last time and fire the head coach after the first year of the quarterback's development. Outside of a completely catastrophic scenario, like you said, where we win like 1 game, 2 games, and we're picking first overall. But if the team starts a guy like Justin Fields for 10 weeks and the team's 3-7 or 4-6, and then the rookie quarterback comes in and looks somewhat promising like a Michael Penix did this year for the last 5 or 6 games, no, I don't think you fire them at that point. I think you give them the next year with the rookie or at that point, the second-year quarterback.
Big shout out to Borna. I know he likes when I take a sip from this, so. Big shout out.
I don't think they're going to survive the season.
No?
I think if the bye week is late enough in the year, they'll make the change during the bye week. I think that they're already on thin ice. I think that John Mara exclaimed that he was impatient, and I think his impatience is going to show during the season. If we have 2 wins in week 14 and we're on the bye, Mike Kafka's been the assistant head coach now for a season and a half. He's viewed across the league as a top head coaching candidate. If he doesn't leave this offseason, he could easily step into that role. And I think that's something that he would consider doing. I mean, this team has been a complete mess, and it's been dysfunctional, and it's been embarrassing. And I think that if they are really bad again this year, especially after John Mara said they have to be better this year, I think that he will pull the trigger quicker
I think Dable could be fired in a situation like you said, week 14. I don't think he would fire the GM in season.
The one thing I'll say is this. Now, there was rumors about Brandon Brown going to the Vegas Raiders. That obviously didn't happen. They hired different GMs. So it is possible that they fire both, and Brandon Brown takes over that role as GM, and Mike Kafka becomes. Adriana, do you think they make it through the year?
I think they do. I agree with what Anthony said and Chris said about Mara and him being impatient and everything. But he also said in that same press conference that if they have another bad year, he's going to be standing here taking the heat again. So I think it depends on how the season goes. I think realistically, they're bringing in a veteran quarterback who's going to play anywhere from 7 to 10 weeks. If at the 10-week mark, let's say, like Chris said, they're 3-7 or 4-6, you put in the rookie quarterback and you see how things go. If he's good enough, they survive. If he is atrocious and everyone else they drafted in 2025 has a bad year, and you've got the veteran quarterback who doesn't look good, then I think they get fired on Black Monday. But I just think he feels like I stuck with them. I'm giving them a whole year. They've got free agency. They've got the draft. I know we have a hard schedule. I know the quarterback class is not great, blah, 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 but I'm giving them a full 17 weeks. And if they look like shit in week 17 or week 18, then it's over with. But I'll be surprised if he lets him go during the year, because I think the same thing. Like, why would you bother getting rid of Dable?
You already took all that heat. You already took all the heat for keeping them
right. But then you're going to get rid of Shane 4 weeks later. Like, if you're going to get rid of them, they're a package deal. You kept them both, which means they're both staying or they're both going.
You're letting them draft a quarterback. Like that could set a franchise back 5 years. I agree with you. I don't think that they're going to fire them mid-season if they let them come back after what just happened.
I feel like every year we've been set back 5 years.
That's true.
It shouldn't set them 5 years back to draft a quarterback, because they shouldn't do what they did with Daniel Jones and try and force it to work for 6 years. If they moved on after 3 years from Jones, we'd be in a good situation by now, probably. Well, probably not, because we always get it wrong. But that was the problem. That's why, Bad Dog, you said if they have a bad year, they draft a quarterback and they're picking number one, they take another one. I subscribe to that belief. I think that is the right way to do things. I think that is how the Giants should operate. And you know what's funny enough? Funny enough here, I actually think it's very ironic, because the team that really set the precedence for that was the Arizona Cardinals and Cliff Kingsbury as their head coach. And if the season goes where the Giants draft a quarterback this offseason, but they're still really bad and they blow it up at the end of the year, the top head coaching candidate next year very well could be Cliff Kingsbury, and they very well could have the number one pick. Hire Cliff Kingsbury, he inherits the number one pick, and he does it over again, just like he did with Josh Rosen and Kyler Murray. I think that's very ironic. I don't know, I don't have a crystal ball. Don't know if that's going to happen, but I do think it's just funny that things are shaping out in the NFL where that could be a situation that repeats itself with Cliff Kingsbury as a top head coaching candidate.
So I look at this question two ways. To Chris and Adriana's point, I don't know what good it would do to fire him in the middle of the year. I don't know what purpose it serves. You did let them,
especially for a quarterback who's learning a new offense,
right? So I mean, I get it. It's I don't know why they would do that. I don't know what it does. But to Anthony's point, it would do one thing for sure. It would send a message. I'm absolutely fed up. I'm done with this. Just get out of my face. I gave you an opportunity. You've been here for almost 4 years. We're terrible. We're going backwards every season. How come you haven't gotten this right yet? Why are we going backwards? We're supposed to be going the other way. So just get the hell out of my face and let me start. Let me get a new GM so he can already go into next season's mode saying, I want to get my guys.
I'm going to say this,
man. My scouting team, my coach, I want to do all this stuff before we get to February.
I'm going to say this, Bad Dog. If they do that, I'm going to be pissed, because they should have fired them before this year if they do that. Yeah. If you're not going to give them the entire – I am going to be livid that you didn't fire them after this season. If you're going to fire them 8 weeks in with a rookie quarterback that you drafted third overall, I will be very upset if they do that.
Well, if they're going to fire Dable at the end of the year, I don't see the point in holding on to him throughout the year when you've got one of the top head coaching candidates in your house. Kafka's been a finalist 2 years in a row. That gives you an opportunity to evaluate him for a few weeks.
I'm more so talking about firing the GM and the head coach in season, mid-season. If you want,
you've also got a top GM candidate in house too. and Brandon Brown. So you get an opportunity to evaluate them as interim before the season ends, even if it's for a month, 4 weeks. See if the building changes, see what happens. I think it's you fire quickly, right? That's the slogan of business: hire slowly, fire quickly. I think you fire quickly in this case personally, but I've also been calling that for the heads of Joe Shane and Brian Daboll for months now. So
I'll tell you why I'd be pissed off, because it means you'd be really shitty again. And I have a hard time dealing with the season. So that's why I'd be really pissed off, because if that happened, it means we're 1-9 again, which unfortunately
is a possibility.
As I'm thinking about this, for the longevity of Daboll and Shane, what I think they're going to do is exactly what you guys said. Because if they throw that rookie quarterback into the fire as soon as Pat Shurmur did with Daniel Jones, he'll lose his job. If the team wins 4 games, what the smart approach to do for them, I know that Anthony wants to get rid of them immediately, but for them to be able to maintain their jobs, which is the way that Joe Shane and Brian Daboll are going to think, for them to be able to maintain their jobs, you start a guy like Justin Fields for 8 to 10 weeks, and then you throw the rookie in, because at that point, you only have a 6 or 7 game sample size, and you say to Mara, well, he showed some progress. Next year, he's going to get a full season. That's what I think the plan is going to be, and that's why I think they're getting 2 more years. As much as Anthony may hate to hear it, that's what I think is going to happen.
Well, okay, one last point on that, because I know we're going to move to the next question. I think part of the reason the Giants didn't fire them this offseason, look at how many firings there were. 30% of the NFL's head coaching GM jobs or something like that were open this year. There were like 10 firings. That was a lot of competition. Next offseason, it should be more tame. It's a better opportunity for the Giants to fire somebody and hire who they want rather than compete with 10 other teams. So I think that is something to keep in mind. I think John Merritt, there was the report. He made exploratory calls before making the decision on Daboll and Shane. So that tells you he was thinking about it. He realized there was a lot of competition and maybe not the strongest options. Next offseason, he'll make those same exploratory calls. He might realize there's less competition. He might have an opportunity to get the right guy in the building.
The one time where I could see it swaying your way is if we have the first pick. Because if you have the first pick, then all the doors are open. You're the most desirable job in the league with potentially a guy like Arch Manning coming out. That I could see. But if we're picking 4th or 5th, I don't see it. Especially if they go the way that I said, where they don't start the rookie for the last 6 or 7 weeks. I think they stay another year.
Yeah,
we'll find out.
We will. Well, unfortunately, I think we are going to find out, because I get a bad feeling. I don't feel like anything they do, even if they draft Cameron Ward, which is what I want them to do, I still feel like going to be like, oh yeah, now we're on our way, because anyway, John, thank you, my friend. He says, sign the Honey Badger and free agency, draft my boy Malachi Moore out of Bama to help take pressure off Tyler Nubin. I'm going to be honest. I don't know much about Malachi Moore, and I don't know where he'd be projected to go. So I don't know. I don't know really where the Giants are going to go after the first 2 rounds, because I just have a feeling.
I don't know where they're going after the first round.
Yeah, I mean, if they take a quarterback, it's a good question, but I think they'd go in the trenches. I have a feeling they'd have to go. If you take a quarterback, of course, depending on what they do in free agency, I think you got to beef up your own line. You Anthony mentioned earlier, not that I had anything to do with this, but you don't want to make the same mistake that you made with Daniel Jones. You don't want to hold on to him and force him for 6 years, but at the same time, you also want to give him a chance to succeed and not get sacked 85 times his 5th year in the league. So, or not Daniel Jones gets sacked 85 times, but you get my point. He was getting killed back there. So, you guys have any thought on Malachi Moore out of Bama?
I've seen him. I mean, I think he's been there for. I've watched him for a few years at Alabama. He's regarded as a good player. I don't know where he's being mocked in these drafts. It's so hard to, especially before free agency. Like for me, like last year after free agency, I predicted Tyler Nubin would be our 2nd round pick because I saw the needs. I said, okay, we lost McKinney. It's a strong possibility he could be the best available player overall with that pick. So after I see how the team is built up until the draft, I'll have more of at least an educated guess as to what I think they'll do in that 2nd round. But at this point, you're throwing darts at a board, man. I have no idea what they're going to do after that 3rd pick. I have no idea right now.
Anybody else have thoughts on that?
I'll say that Alabama safeties, the hit rate is ridiculous. Like the last 5 that have been drafted have all been good. So sure, Alabama safeties are ones to target and move a little bit higher up the board. I think the part of this that stood out to me is take pressure off of Tyler Nubin. I was just doing the stream on Bleach Report. We were talking about Tyler Nubin. It's bizarre to me that the Giants put him out there for 100% of snaps before he got injured. He was a rookie. That was like the most ridiculous thing that nobody was talking about. Why was this rookie second-round pick playing 100% of the Giants' defensive snaps? That made no sense to me. He was not Xavier McKinney. I know, but if you really don't trust your depth that much, tells you what you need to know about the general manager. A, B, C, it's everything. But I just don't get it. They do need to take pressure off of Tyler Nubin because a rookie shouldn't be doing
that. With Okereke and McKinney, they played 100%.
Yeah, but that's different. Those are proven vets. Those are legit players. This is a rookie. He's going to have growing pains, and I get more reps is more experience, but also more liability and more risk for injury. I don't know. It's putting way too much on a rookie's plate at once, in my opinion. They should have had a little bit more of a rotation.
But I like that Tyrann, because Tyrann Mather obviously has been in the league a long time, and we don't have a lot of leadership in that secondary. We lost it with McKinney, so maybe that would bring some leadership to that secondary room. Big Moo, thank you. This is not my channel, Big Moo, so I can't block anybody. So if the gods above are watching, our guys, can you please add I don't see what's going on in the chat because I'm looking at these, and then right after that, McGill said, we're trying to beg you to block Trish K. So if you, I don't know what you're doing.
The last couple of things that Trish has said, I agree. It's one thing if you troll the "Hey Chris" and everything. What now you're getting a little offensive.
Yeah, that's.
So I agree at this point. If they're watching, if you could block Trisha, we don't tolerate that here.
Always watching. Always watch. Yeah. Please get rid of that person. Jared, thank you so much, says trade picks with Las Vegas. Draft Mason Graham, Milroe or Dart in the second. Sidebar, I would take running back Mullen, day 2 or 3, bigger back with only 2 years as a running back. Decent pass pro. Adrian, I'll start with you. What do you think about the possibility of trading back with Vegas? I mean, for me, that would only make sense if Vegas wanted a quarterback and there was a quarterback there.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But if there is, I don't see us trading back. But you
right. I know. I feel the same way. And I really like Mason Graham, and I think that he would be great. But I have convinced myself that if the quarterbacks are gone, for me, I think it's Abdul Carter or bust. So I don't know if I'm willing to do that. I like the idea, but part of me is also like, well, we have 9 picks this year, which is great. If we can get, another first rounder for 2026, that's awesome. But then I'm like, if Vegas is trading up for us because the quarterback's on the board, like I probably want the quarterback at that point. So I don't know. I think all of these things are going to be scenarios that they go through this offseason, but I'm not sure that it depends on who's available when 3 rolls around. I'm on board with Milroe or Dart in the second. I don't know much about Mullen, but like I said earlier, I've heard this is a pretty deep running back class. So if he's the best player available, in later rounds, then I'm on board with that. But we have a lot of holes to fill, and running back is not one of the top ones, especially with this being also defensive tackle class that's pretty deep.
Yeah, and I'll follow up on that real quick. I don't necessarily hate the idea of trading back. Like I get when fans bring up that possibility. I get it, man. You're always enchanted with the possibility of accruing more draft capital. So in the future, you could trade up and get your quarterback. I get it, man. But more often than not, or a lot of times it doesn't work out. We were all thrilled when we traded back from 11 to 22 and ended up with Tony and got the 5th and 7th pick. How did that work out? And if you're Joe Schoen, I'm going to continue to say this. He's not trading back. Joe Schoen is not going to do what Dave Gettleman did. He saw that Dave Gettleman traded back and got him a future first-round pick. Joe Schoen knows his job's on the line. He's not going to trade back so Brandon Brown could make that pick in 2026. It's not happening. He's going to stay and he's going to pick. If anything, he's going to trade up to make sure he gets his quarterback.
Yeah, then what's your opinion?
I agree with that. And I also just don't think this is the draft class to trade down in. If you read all the reports and the analysis from the draft experts, this is a pretty weak draft class at the top. They say there's a lot of if you're looking in the second round, usually you're drafting third round guys, you're going to get second round guys in this class because the mid rounds are pretty strong in this class is what they're saying. But that first round really only has a few true first round prospects and only a very small number of blue chip prospects. So with that in mind, I think that this is a stick and pick draft class, not really a trade down one. I think that, as Chris mentioned, they tried to do that in 2021, I believe it was.
Yeah.
That was probably also a stick and pick draft class based on where the talent was. Yeah. So that, in hindsight, and even then, I just can't.
I think what happened in that draft, Anthony,
Micah Parsons on the board was crazy that they passed him. But
you tell me if you agree with me, Anthony. I think in that draft, Gettleman and Judge went into that draft, and I said it all offseason. I thought the guy they were going to target was Devontae Smith, and I think they went into it in that draft being like, we're taking Devontae Smith. And then when the Eagles traded up to get Devontae Smith, they panicked and they said, let's just trade back and get the future first round pick rather than sticking and taking Micah Parsons or Rashawn Slater, who were both viable options with that pick. I think that's what happened. I think they panicked. They said, we're taking a wide receiver no matter what with this pick. We need it for Daniel Jones. And it was something, didn't that happen? That happened with the Eli Apple pick too, didn't it? Where they were so stuck on.
It was Leonard Floyd they wanted.
Yeah, Floyd, yeah.
And Jack Conklin. Both of those guys, two teams traded up ahead of us, and that was a panic pick. No.
Yeah.
I also think with the 2021 draft, when they traded down, that was the year that all the fans were calling for a trade down, and the media was running with the whole statistic that Dave Gettleman has never traded down in any draft ever. And I think in some ways he felt pressured to do it. It was kind of like, if Devontae Smith isn't there, I'm going to trade down. That's how I felt about it. I think that was another case of the Giants letting the fans and the media influence their decisions.
Yeah, I don't know. We could have had Micah Parsons. That would have been a nice consolation prize.
He may still be our GM if we got Micah Parsons.
He might have been. I mean, who knows?
So the impact he had his rookie year with the Cowboys.
Yeah, I mean, you never know. Like you never know what would have happened. Same thing. I always say hindsight's 20/20. I mean, what the hell can you do? All you can do. I say it all the time, man. It doesn't matter what walk of life you're from, what you do for a living, any of this stuff. Human beings make mistakes. The whole point is to learn from them. Unfortunately, the Giants don't ever seem to learn from their mistakes, and they continue to repeat them because they're not learning. And this is how franchises get in these vicious cycles of being bad football teams. Ask the Commander fans. They know this. They went through it for 30 years, and they hadn't won 12 games in a season since the last time they went to the Super Bowl. They'd only won 10 games 3 times in 33 years. They hadn't won a playoff game in 20 years. They know what it is to suffer under a bad regime. And then all of a sudden you make major changes. You hit on the right guy. You make some good moves. You hire the right people. Bam! There it is. So if there's an inkling of hope for the Giants, you hope that Joe Schoen can nail this draft, because I feel like he had a really good one. I felt like he had a strong draft last year. Felt like he did a good job in free agency. The guys he brought in, obviously, the Saquon thing looks bad. And I
don't care, man. I
know.
I still think he made the right decision with Saquon.
People will knock him for that. But I'm saying the guys he brought in, Illuminor, Runyon, they seem to help. And I thought he did a pretty good job this year. So he would need to do it again. He's got to do well in free agency. He's got a lot of cap space, and he's got to nail the draft. And especially if they're getting a quarterback, he can't miss. No pressure, Joe. No pressure.
No pressure. He's got to find the next franchise quarterback, Joe. No pressure.
Right. No problem, man. I mean, they're a dime a dozen franchise quarterbacks.
By the way, I see the comments in the chat, and I think it is a good idea. And we'll talk in the group chat after. We will get a few mods in here, so this doesn't happen again. We will get 1 or 2, maybe 3 mods. Our regulars that are in here. We appreciate all you guys, and we're just trying to grow a good community. So thank you guys for the recommendation.
Jaden, thank you. He says Joe Schoen needs to be caught and compromised, and to a permanent end if the Titans, draft a 9 quarterback and Cam Ward isn't on my football team. I'm missing something, but yeah, I see what you're saying. If Cameron Ward, if Cameron Ward is there at 3, and he don't take him,
and they don't take it, we're riding.
Yeah, there'll be hell to pay.
Yeah, I'm gonna say this: if Sanders is off the board and Cam Ward is there, and the Giants don't take it, like if they took Sanders, you would just say, okay, that was their preference at quarterback. But if Cam Ward is the only quarterback of the 2 that's there, and they pass on Cam Ward, they're not gonna fly planes over MetLife Stadium. They're gonna fly blimps. They're gonna fly. They're gonna fly like the biggest plane you could ever see is gonna be flying over MetLife Stadium next year if they pass up on Cam Ward. There's no way they'd have the balls to do
again.
that.
I mentioned, there's 4 Italians here, so one of us definitely knows somebody that makes concrete shoes. And Joe Shane, we'll have a pair fitted for you if you pass on Cameron Ward if he's the only quarterback there. Let's put it that way. No pressure, Joe. No pressure. You know Joe watches. We love you, Joe, but no pressure. Chris, thank you so much. Congrats to CC Sabathia. Yeah, I saw that. Well deserved. Yankee fans.
By the way, Ichiro one person didn't vote for Ichiro. What do we? And I know that there's only been one Hall of Famer ever, Mariano. But what are we doing? The guy had 3,100 hits from the age of 27 till he retired. He had more hits than Pete Rose if you include his career while he was in Japan. Who didn't vote for that guy?
He's a 10-time All-Star and Gold Glove. Like that's fucking insane.
Somebody didn't vote for Ken Griffey Jr. Somebody didn't vote for Tony Gwynn. Somebody didn't vote for Babe Ruth.
It's crazy.
It is crazy.
Like that person should lose the right to vote.
I totally
point them out and lose the right to vote. But obviously CC, one of my favorite Yankees ever. I love CC. And Billy Wagner, former Met. Not that he's going in as a Met, but he got in as well. So
he deserved it too. They had a good class this year.
Yeah,
they had a good class. Neil, thank you so much, guys. How did the Commanders make the NFC Championship game first year of the rebuild? They were supposed to stink the rest of my life. Yeah, better. That's probably the way some people feel about the Giants. Like if we ever made a turnaround like that, I'd be like, the Giants are supposed to suck for the rest of my life. Shane better hit on 3. How did the Commanders do it? Anthony, how did they do it?
They landed a franchise quarterback. It doesn't start and end there, but man, that sure helps. I mean, even with Houston the year prior, everyone thought they were going to be bad for several years, and they hit on C.J. Stroud, and they got a new coach in there, and they revamped their culture. Same thing that Washington did. That's the blueprint. When you're picking high like that and you've got an opportunity to get a potential franchise quarterback, you have to seize that opportunity. But I do think it's worth noting the new quarterback coming in and the turnaround coincides with a new coach and new culture coming in. And I think that's really important. And that's why I have so much concern.
The most important. New owner, too.
Yeah. Well, for Washington, but for Houston, I don't think they had.
Oh, I thought you were talking about Washington.
Yeah, both years. Yeah. Both years they revamped. Yeah, I mean, Washington revamped literally everything that you could, but Houston made a lot of changes as well. And again, that's why I have so much concern about Joe Shane and holdovers trying to start this rebuild 3 years off schedule. It doesn't really make a ton of sense to me, but I think it's the quarterback position. It matters a lot. And definitely making sure you have the right player personnel, front office leaders in there as well.
And I think I'm not saying it's going to be successful. It won't be. Don't go into next year expecting an NFC Championship appearance. But I think the Giants are going to have a very similar offseason to what Washington had last year. I think they're going to sign a ton of free agents, and I think they're going to draft a quarterback because they're going to try to get their quarterback off on the right foot. So I think it's going to be a similar offseason. I don't expect the same results, but I think
it's money though. Like we've only got $45 million in cap space. Washington's playing with like $100 million every year because they don't have any good they don't have big contracts.
We have more than enough money where Shane could finagle money to bring in players. I'm not worried about that. You could backload the Thomas deal. You could backload the Dexter Lawrence deal. He's got money to play with if he wants to bring in 3 or 4 impactful free agents.
Aren't we supposed to have around 60? I thought we were supposed to have
more than. I think it's 55. Last I looked, 55.
43 when I wrote my article today per over the cap. So
yeah, I saw over the cap. I thought initially we were at 55, but the last time I checked it also was at 43. So
maybe it changed then.
I don't know if like it was at 55 million and it was like for 45 players and not like a full roster, and then they added like sometimes that's what it'll show. It'll have like 47. It won't have
right. They changed it. Yeah,
it could be that it's 43 million effective. I don't know, because effective cap space is different than actual cap space. Effective cap space takes into account draft picks and future contracts, so that could be what it is, but I'm not entirely sure.
All right. Take this one.
Either way, though, I think they'll be aggressive. I do. I really do.
He has to be.
Yeah.
No question. He has to be. John, he's going to be ultra aggressive. And with that, we'll take this last question from Chris. Thank you so much. Is the guard from the Kansas City Chiefs, Trey Smith, realistic free agent for the Giants to sign? That'd be the first guy I'm after. Adrian, is it realistic, though, that they can pull him away from what could be the 3-time defending champion
Super Bowl winner? Yeah, that's a good question. I think it's hard to say. I think if you throw enough money at him, he'd probably say yes. The question that I have is, I don't think anyone is worth a while to overpay, unless we're a guard away, which we're so clearly not. And there's other players that they need in free agency. So if they can finagle a good deal with him, I think it's absolutely worth a try, and they have to try it and see what happens. But I would probably say don't get your hopes up.
Anthony.
I don't think it's realistic. I think with the 45 million or whatever it is, even if it's 60 million, I don't think that it's enough to do that. Plus, you've got a lot of other holes to fill. I don't think that Joe Schoen wants to shop at the top of the offensive line market, because last offseason seemed like the perfect time to do so, and he forewent that opportunity. So would be a great addition. Trey Smith, young and really talented, but at the same time, what's the incentive for him to go from the Super Bowl champion, multi-time Kansas City Chiefs to – yeah, but even then, keep in mind that money is greener in Miami or another place that doesn't have the same income taxes, which is something that obviously Tyreek Hill influenced his decision, and it influences the decisions of many players. So I don't know. I think it's an uphill battle if the New York Giants want to attract any of the top free agents, especially a Super Bowl winning offensive lineman like Trey Smith.
Yeah, without question. You know what I like when I mentioned this on Twitter? People are always like, could have had him in the 6th round. Well, it doesn't matter where you could have had him. He was a 6th round pick, but look at where he is now. Now his market value is going to be, top money as far as the position goes, because he's probably the top guard that's out there by far.
Yeah.
Chris, what do you think? Is it realistic to think Trey Smith?
Do I think he's a possibility? Sure. I if you look at Shane's track record, what I think he's going to do in terms of, I don't know the individual player he's going to target, but the pattern suggests what he does in free agency is he goes for youth. He goes for, like, Bobby Okereke was only 25, I think, when he was a free agent. Like, the guys that he spent somewhat, he doesn't go for the 29, 30-year-olds. He wants to go for those, even like guys that didn't work, like Paris Campbell. He was like 25 when they signed him with upside. He had an injury. I think he's going to go for those guys that are just hitting free agency, 25, 26 with upside. I do think he'll spend more towards the top of the market for than he's done in the past, because he needs to. He needs to get this team on track, and he needs to support that rookie quarterback as soon as possible. I'm leaning no to Trey Smith, even though I would love him, because the amount that they put a lot of resources into the offensive line last year. I think he could sign another mid-tier offensive lineman this year and attack it in the draft as well to improve the depth. But I'm leaning his premium additions in free agency. As I've said all along, I don't know if we'll get him, but I think he's going to be in the market for an upper echelon wide receiver. I think he's going to be in the market for an upper echelon cornerback. I think those are going to be the two positions he attacks the most in free agency, maybe interior defensive line as well. That's where I think he's going to look to spend the majority of his assets.
Yeah, I wish we could get Trey Smith, but I frankly don't see it happening. It's like an impossible. So, hey, you just won.
If we get him, bad dog, I'll be celebrating with you.
Of course. Hey, you just won 3 Super Bowls in a row. Why don't you come to a team that just won 3 games? That's a great selling point. I mean, it's probably not going to happen. But we appreciate you guys and girls. Thank you so much for your questions, and as always, thank you so much for hanging out with us. We know it's tough right now. We got to look at 2 teams in our division going for playing for the right to win the Super Bowl. One team we absolutely hate, one team that was worse than us for 20 years longer than us, and all of a sudden they're there. And, obviously everything could go wrong, went wrong for the Giants. But we appreciate you hanging in there with us. And, as things progress, we get closer to free agency and the draft. Obviously, we'll have a lot more to talk about going forward, and things will get exciting definitely once, early spring gets here for sure. So with that said, for Adriana, Anthony, and the Entertainer Talking Sports, enjoy the rest of your night, everybody. We'll see you next week. We out. Peace.
Have a good night.